Happy Wednesday, everyone. Jeff Risen here with the Daily DLP. And we have a coaching change to talk about. John Morton was let go yesterday as the Lions offensive coordinator. I'm glad it happened. I did a little short about it, which if you like and subscribe to the channel, you'll know you watched it already. Look, I hate it when guys get fired. I've seen too many families get impacted by it that it can't affect you. But the long and the short of it is he needed to go, and they made the decision, and it's a good one. And now we're going to talk today about who might be next and who will be the next OC for the Detroit Lions. Will they be the play caller? See, Dan dropped some nuggets, Coach Campbell, in his press conference on Monday about how he wasn't opposed to still calling plays. And the thing that he said was, I'll paraphrase it, was you don't have to worry about that guy, the play caller, leaving if it's me. And that was an interest, it kind of went over our heads a little bit. I think there's some truth in that. I think he's probably looking at an offensive coordinator candidate who can come in and who can work with the existing offense, let Dan call plays, but maybe work on the schematics, maybe work on the play design, the game planning, the structuring, things like that. So I think Dan did okay with those things. It unfortunately just took away from the rest of his coaching duties. And we talked about that in yesterday's daily, where he just, there was too much going on with Dan switching midseason. Had that been the case at the beginning of the season, had John Morton not been calling plays at the start of the year and all the shifting that went on and around in how the Lions came up with their game plans and everything, I think it would have been different. And I think Dan sees it differently too. Yeah, just my speculation on that. But if he's going to call the plays, got a couple of names that certainly stand out as familiar, have been in Detroit, have ties to Jared Goff, ties to this existing Lions offense that was created with Dan and Ben Johnson. You can't rule Ben out from that. He deserves some credit for creating this. And one of the guys, and it was the first name that came out, and Ian Rappaport reported on it on Tuesday night. David Blough, who was the quarterback's coach for the Washington Commanders for the last season. And I know, look, and I put a little thing on X about it, about how it makes a lot of sense that they would consider him. By the way, that doesn't mean I'm endorsing hiring him. But it certainly makes sense why the Lions would be interested in Blough. He's young. He's dynamic. He is considered an up-and-comer. Even when he was playing, when he was the Lions' backup quarterback, how many times did everybody in the Lions media, even the people who are adversarial to the Lions by profession, talk about, Blough's going to be a good coach one day? Same sort of mantra that Kellen Moore got when he was here. Look what he's doing now. Got a pretty dang good offense. A very good team. A pretty good offense. Blough's really young. He's been a coach for 2 years. Jumping him to offensive coordinator is a massive one. I thought maybe just writing him as the passing game coordinator and something like that would pass, but I'm gonna trust that Ian Rappaport's reporting is correct and that he will be considered as the next offensive coordinator for the Lions. I don't hate it, especially if Dan's going to keep calling the plays. Blough knows Goff extremely well. He's also been in enough other styles of offenses that he can input some things, whether it was in Washington with what they ran, with I believe it was Cliff Kingsbury. I don't think Dan's going to have any interest in Cliff Kingsbury. Just throw that out there now. He is available, though. He was with Cleveland with Stefanski for a little bit. It's an interesting idea. I probably need more time to process it to see, and also who else is a candidate. So the other one, and the first name that came, and I put this in our Patreon Slack, the first name that came to my mind as replacement is Antoine Randall L., who is currently the wide receivers coach and assistant head coach for the Chicago Bears. He went with Ben to Chicago after being the Lions wide receivers coach for a long time. It was not an easy decision for him to go. He's talked about that. Lions liked him a lot as a coach. He has interesting fingerprints in terms of the fact that he played quarterback, that he played wide receiver. He understands all the personnel that's here. He was a big part of reining in JMO and getting JMO to buy into being a Detroit Lion. We don't worry about JMO anymore after this year. At least we shouldn't. Had a fantastic season. I think that his familiarity with how these guys like to be coached and the other coaches that are still in the room, Mark Brunell, Hank Fraley, Scotty Montgomery. I assume that Seth Ryan's probably going to stick around in some capacity. He's very popular in the locker room. That's an easy one. Now, the trick is, because he's the assistant head coach in Chicago, it's technically a demotion to become a coordinator. So something would have to happen there. Maybe they'd have to trade for him. I don't know the specifics on that yet. This is just sort of, stream of thought guys that came to mind. But he certainly makes a lot of sense as a candidate. Again, if they can get him out of Chicago, probably easier said than done. If you're looking from internal current candidates, I don't think they're going there. And the reason why, and it's something that has been discussed quite a bit, they didn't do it in the season when it was obvious that something needed to happen. Now, maybe they were just averse to firing John Morton in season. Maybe they didn't want to rock the boat that much and have a position coach, whether it's Hank Fraley or Scotty Montgomery, ascend. I can respect that. But it sure feels like the way this team was going and the way this team had such high expectations and it wasn't working, I got to think they're going to be looking outside. Not necessarily like outside the structure of the current offense, but outside the exact current building. If they are going to do someone internal, I think Scotty Montgomery is probably more likely than Hank Fraley. Nothing against Hank, but I think he's a position coach, and I think that this past season, his time as a run game coordinator, whether that was just a title to keep him and give him more money or not, wasn't great, frankly. Didn't have a lot to work with, so that certainly comes into play. But Scotty is a guy who has taken a lot of leadership, and by the way, he's coached running backs, he's coached wide receivers. He has been a head coach before. There's a lot of things that would indicate that he's probably the best internal candidate. Would he want it? I don't know. Would he be a good one? I don't know. But if you're looking for the internal guys, he's probably the guy. I don't see Mark Brunell being a guy who's striving to climb that sort of coaching ladder that way. Maybe I could be way off on that, but that just doesn't seem who he is. But he's certainly got the familiarity with Goff and the Goffense, as it were. Going outside the building a little bit. So the Ravens fired John Harbaugh, or parted whatever they want to call it. He ain't there no more, which is stunning when you think about the fact that he probably lost his job because a rookie kicker missed a 42-yard field goal, and it cost him the season. I know it's a lot more than that. There has been tension brewing there for some time, apparently. But his OC in Baltimore, who, by the way, he refused to fire, that's one of the reasons why he was let go, is Todd Monken. Todd has been everywhere. Pros, college, Most of the time he's been successful. He is an aggressive, innovative type of head coach. He's done wonders with Lamar Jackson's passing. It helps when you've got Derrick Henry, helps when you've got a great offensive line. But he knows how to coach. He knows how to draw things up. But this is a big but. He's still employed by the Baltimore Ravens. They haven't fired him yet. And they might not want to, especially if they're trying to appease Lamar Jackson. And that sounds like that's sort of what's going on. Look, there's a lot going on in Baltimore. They would be a fascinating team to cover right now. But he's certainly somebody who would be intriguing as a name. Absolutely. Would Dan consider him? Would Brad consider him? I would hope they'd at least listen to what he has to say, even if it's just for bringing him in as a courtesy interview and picking his brain about what he might see for the offense. Teams do that. That's actually one of the ways that Ben Johnson elected to stay, because he felt like one of the teams that he interviewed with or was going to interview with was just more interested in stealing his offense than actually hiring him. But so Monken is put him in the consider it, but it's probably not likely. Again, this is all just, it's very early in the process. The only one that we've heard anything about is Blough. Brian Daboll certainly has been the subject of a lot of speculation over the last months, ever since he was fired as the coach of the New York Giants. He and Dan have a definite admiration for one another. They've worked together before. I'm not super excited about the idea of Brian Daboll, because outside of his time with Josh Allen, and I do remember him in Cleveland, and I do remember him at other stops, other than when he was with Josh Allen, he's not been a good offensive coordinator. He is also, how do you say this politely? Because he's not a bad dude, and he would probably fit in, but he is somebody that can get on players a little bit more than the players like to be gotten on, if that makes sense. I'll channel my inner Ash there. So he's certainly a name that I wouldn't be at all surprised if they interview him quickly. I don't know if he's interested in getting a head coaching job again, or if he's going to be, shopping his wares. He's getting paid a lot of money to not coach the New York Giants anymore. I'm actually a little bit more interested in the guy who took over for him in New York, presuming he doesn't get the Giants head coaching job, and that's Mike Kafka, former NFL journeyman backup quarterback, kind of like David Blough. Played collegiately at Northwestern. Coached under Andy Reid for a time in Kansas City. So he's got his sort of his, and that's sort of the background of the offense that he comes from. Sort of that Andy Reid style. Let's run, let's attack the perimeter, let's use tight ends in the seam. Let's have a fantastic quarterback who can run around a little bit, do some things. I like what Kafka did with the Giants offense, even after they lost Cam Scadabo and Malik Neighbors. They don't have a very good offensive line. He still found ways to run the ball. He still found ways to get shots down the field, to get guys open. He's a quarterback. That's what he was in the league. I like. He's an up and coming coach. He's going to get a head coaching job sooner than later. I would like for him to maybe get that apprenticeship in Detroit as an offensive coordinator, because he does bring enough familiarity that he's not going to overhaul things, but he's also going to bring some things in from where he's been. He played in Philadelphia for a little bit. Like he's an interesting one. And again, I don't know if the Lions will have interest in him. We'll have to see. But those are the names that I wrote down on a list when I was thinking about who would be the next OC. There's probably some more obscure offensive assistants around the league that I just haven't thought about yet. Drew Petzing is a guy who was just fired as the Cardinals offensive coordinator. I don't think he did a particularly very good job there. And I brought him up in the Patreon Slack, and I meant to bring him up as the next tight ends coach because that's what he was in Cleveland. He was a pretty good one. I would hope that he wouldn't be the next offensive coordinator, but as a tight ends coach, going back to that would be great. By the way, David Njoku happens to be a free agent. I know they like one another. He got the best years out of Chief. Lions could use some fresh blood at tight end. Maybe that's something that goes on, but I don't expect Petzing to be a serious candidate, although he does come from the Kubiak, O'Connell, Stefanski coaching tree. Kevin Stefanski, that guy's going to be a head coach if he wants to. If he wants to coach next year, he'll be a head coach. I'm also not a huge fan of how he vacillated between calling plays, not calling plays. When he didn't call plays, he wasn't exactly he didn't exactly throw like guys like Alex Van Pelt under the bus, but he also like didn't swerve to miss them either. So just from covering that Browns team for a while, I'm not the world's biggest Kevin Stefanski fan, but I do think that he will become a head coach if he wants to be. Beyond that, I mean, we're still looking at like other teams are, filling out their staffs, but this is the good thing. If there's a silver lining in the Lions not making the playoffs this year, is that they can get this coaching stuff done while other teams are still out there, while they're in direct competition with other teams that have vacancies. That didn't happen last year, and it cost them. So, look, every cloud has a silver lining. Sometimes it's really hard to find them, and I might be stretching there a little bit, but at least they're going to be in the conversation and in competition with things. As for John Morton, I have no idea what happens with him. I'm going to guess he probably winds up maybe scurrying back to Denver. I don't know. I actually don't know who took over for him in Denver, but that would probably be somebody to look at as well. We'll get more time on as we talk about that. But I just want to give a list of initial names that I think the Lions will be interested in. And I think that or need to be addressed because they're big names. We got a lot more to talk about with that. By the way, we haven't heard if David Shaw is back yet or not. He and Morton are very close friends. They've been together forever. I wasn't all that impressed with what David Shaw brought in, but as some of you who followed me for a long time know, I didn't think he was a very good head coach at Stanford either. So I'm probably not the most unbiased voice there. I wouldn't be sad if he was gone, but I also wouldn't hate it if he's back. I'm sort of in the middle on that one. We got a lot more things to talk about, but today's daily, we got an OC search going on, ladies and gentlemen. Let's hope it comes out the way that we want it to, and I will just bring this back up. When Ben Johnson was hired, a not insignificant portion of this fan base and media hated it, pilloried the Lions for who the hell's Ben Johnson? We could have had X, Y, Z, A, B. We hired this guy. He was a tight ends coach. What does he know? Well, it's been a pretty good hire. Once upon a time, the Rams hired Sean McVay as their head coach. And people were like, oh my God. Guy doesn't know what he's doing. He's barely got any experience at all. I think that's worked out pretty well. Be careful jumping to too big of a conclusion because you don't like the name or don't know the name. And I will try to do the same. With that, enjoy the rest of the day and keep let's go Lions.